Hi Stampers, this is Kim with Great Inspirations. I'm so glad you're here today. I thought we would take a look at another very quick fun fold card, and that card is called a tent topper card. And it's called that because we fold it. It's basically a square card, a 4¼ by 4¼ inch square card. It stands up, and when you stand it up, like if you were looking down, it looks like a tent. And then you make a topper or an image to put on the top. You raise this top up to where the actual measurement of the card will be 5½ by 4¼ just like a regular A2 size card. Now, I went through some of my notes and books and things that I keep records about fun fold cards and card layouts. And the first time I saw a mention of a tent topper card was in my notes in 2007. But the first time I made one was 2009 for some odd reason. And that was the year that was actually all my Christmas cards were tent topper cards. And I'm going to say traditionally, but don't take that as the gospel truth. But when I first learned about tent topper cards, remember this was back in the day, there were not a lot of dies. Not a lot of card makers had dies, but we did have all kinds of circle punches and different kinds of little gadgets to cut circles. So many of the tent topper cards were the basic square card with some pattern paper for a layer, or maybe some cardstock, and then there would be an image that was stamped and colored and cut out in a circle and then matted on another circle or two to make the topper. So that seems to me to be very traditional. That's how we were all making them way back then. So here is an example of what I would call a traditional or a classic tent topper card. You know, it stands up real nice and cute for display. And it's just real quick to make because you cut a card base that is 8½ by 4¼ and score it at 4¼ and then you just decorate it. You fix your topper, and then to adhere your topper in place, you simply get a piece of cardstock or paper or even a card base that is 5½ by 4¼ match the bottom of your square card to the bottom of your guide here, and then adhere your topper so that it comes to the top of your guide. And there you have it, an A2 size card that's not the traditional fold. So let's take a look at what I call my twist, and I'm not the first one to do this, but it's just something that I did several years ago to kind of change this recipe up just a little bit. And one of the things I did was, instead of using that classic circle for the topper, I now have tons of dies and, you know, stamps with the coordinating dies. And I had this cute little mermaid stamp, and I die cut it, and it has become my topper. And I created it just exactly like I did this typewriter one. I simply use this as the topper instead of the circle, and I did it the exact same way. I lined it up, and then I adhered the mermaid so that she came up to make a total of 5½ inches tall, to make the card a total of that. So here's this little mermaid, and you can see on the for the mat, I've used just an embossed piece of cardstock and put a greeting. And then on the inside, just happy birthday. And I had a couple strips of the embossed cardstock that I put in there. So there is one way I kind of switched it up. And I'm going to leave him over here. I have to have him on the white paper so you can see it because it's on black cardstock. So we'll just leave that there. Now, another thing I did, that a mermaid was a large die. Now, what if you have dies that they're big, but they're not that big? Well, I call those medium dies. And here's what I did. I had this flip-flop dies, and I just cut the pear out. And I used my greeting here. I just kind of set it at an angle to kind of take up more of the space in the lower portion of the card, and then I could pop these up to be there at that 5.5 inch mark. So on this one, I've just used the pattern paper and then pattern paper for the flip-flops. Life is better in flip-flops. Hope your birthday is flippin' awesome. So there's just another little variation. And then I had another die that's larger, but I wanted to show you that you don't have to put layers. Here's a balloon card wishing you all the wishes. And I just set up my scene with the clouds and the balloon on the card base. Before I glued the balloon down, I made sure it came up to 5.5 inches. And there was my card. And inside, hope your day is on cloud 9. Happy birthday. So there's using a larger stamp and no layers. And you know, we all know we have these options. Sometimes it's just kind of great or kind of nice to sit back and talk about them and remember them. Now, I do have a Christmas version of this, and I use some smaller images to create the topper. And here this is. As you can see, I've used move this one over here now. I've used the snowmen. There's 3 of them. And they're smaller, so I did need the 3 of them to kind of take up the space. And I just popped them up. So where they're like 5.5 inches. I have a greeting on here. And then, of course, inside, wishing you a Merry Christmas. So here are some samples. And then we're going to put one together just to walk through it, just to talk a little bit about the 5.5 inch height you want to get for your card. So we'll move these aside for now. And we'll bring in some things that I have to assemble another card. And of course, the first thing we're going to start with is a card base. And as I said, it's 8 1/2 by 4 1/4. It's scored at, 4 1/4. It's scored by 4 1/4. Fold it, and there's your base. I'm going to bring in this white paper. I think we'll probably be able to see it better since this is a dark green. Then I am going to use a mat, and this one, it's a piece of pattern paper that is 4 by 4. Now, I know I've given out a lot of measurements, but you don't have to worry about that. If you follow, go to my corresponding blog post, and you will find all the cutting measurements and directions and all that kind of thing. And the link to that blog post is found in the description of this video. So we have our layer of pattern paper. We have an inside panel, and it is, of course, 4 by 4, and I just put a 1 inch by 4 inch piece of the pattern paper on the bottom of it. And then for our topper, I went with a circle. And this is a die that cuts all these different sections. So I had 5 colors, so I had to cut it 5 times. So I have 4 more of these in different color variations that I can use later. But, you know, I just thought that made kind of a pretty design in all the greens. And I have stamped a few little birds there, so it can kind of help jazz up our forest here. I've stamped these and then fussy cut them. We have some dimensionals on back, so we can pop that on here. So our topper is going to be a combination of the traditional circle and the less traditional trees. Now we could, if we wanted to, we could put these on here just like this and put on the happy birthday. But I just thought this circle would just add a whole lot more pizzazz. So I thought that's what we'll do. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take some adhesive and put the inside in. Then we won't have to worry about it. So there's that. I'll open up our card. We'll just center it as best we can. And there's that. Quick and easy. Now we're going to put our, this piece, our mat. That looks good that way. Just get a little adhesive on the back of it. Make sure I have the front. Get this on here with a nice even border on all sides. There we go. And now we need to put our topper on, at least this part of it. So we need to bring in our 5.5 by 4.25 inch guide, and we're going to put our card right here. I need to reach over here and grab a pencil, because the way I get these on when I need some help, I get that where I want it, I hold on to it, flip it over, and I'm not sure you'll be able to see this pencil line, but I'm going to draw it right here. You see that right there? And I know that below that I can put adhesive. So that's what we're going to do. And then if you want to, you can erase that line. I think I'll just leave it there. It's kind of hard to see. So let's just put this right here. And then you can line it up. Try to make sure there's an even amount of cardstock on each side from your card base. I'm just going to very lightly press that into place, see if I like it. I think I need to move it. Oh, no, I think that'll be okay. We'll just put that right there. There's that. And now all we need to do is take the backs off our dimensionals, put the trees in place, and then we'll put on the greeting, and this card will be finished. And that's how quick it is. And that's what, I mean, I don't know about where you live, but where I live, it's been rather hot. August is traditionally hazy, hot, and humid, and the humidity just gets so awful, and you can hardly breathe without drowning. And then it'll rain, and it'll feel so good for about 5 minutes. And then it's all steamy and humid again. But it doesn't last long. Won't be long, and we'll have fall, and it'll be so nice and pleasant. So here we go. But anyway, on these hot days, and I'm making cards, I like to make quick and easy cards, but I also like to make fun folds. So that's what, for the month of August, I've been trying to find fun folds that are really quick to make. So we have our greeting, and it's up on some foam tape. Put it right here. And there we go. There it is. We have our topper on. It should be 5.5 inches. And it is. And there we go. See if it stands up like a nice little tent topper card should, and it does. And that's all there is to it. a tent topper card. And like I said, you can do the traditional version. And this is kind of a hybrid, a traditional and non-traditional. You can use just a larger die for your topper. Move these up just a little bit. I know they get cut off, don't they? And then here's the balloon, which is, again, a larger die, but I use no mats. And here's kind of medium-sized dies. And then here are smaller dies used for toppers. Well, I thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll give the tent topper card a try. And once again, the directions and the measurements for these cards will be found on my corresponding blog post, and the link to that blog post is in the description of this video. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Until next time, stamp happy.